everybody. So we are going to start Unit 6 today. We're going to do the first part of the chapter before Christmas break, and then we'll do the second part when we come back. I'm hoping to get through this whole first part of the packet, and then we'll hopefully quiz on Wednesday of next week. So it's all about polygons and quadrilaterals. But before we get into those, the first lesson is actually a review from algebra with simplifying radicals. You may have seen in the previous chapters, it'll say, leave in simplest radical form, and I told you we would get to that. Well, here we are. So first of all, you need to know a couple of terms. So irrational numbers, and it might be helpful if you have a highlighter of some sort. Irrational numbers, think of pi. Those are numbers, nope, don't you dare highlight all of that. Those are numbers that cannot be expressed as a fraction. Numbers that go on forever, there's no pattern or anything like that. Now, when you're dealing with square roots, and the first thing you're going to do is use your calculator. You hit second and then x squared. So if we're looking at a calculator, second, which is there, and then x squared right here, which I think most of you know already. All right. If you have to put in a fraction, don't forget you hit alpha y equals and then enter to put a fraction in. Okay, so real quick, it might be helpful if you pause the video to try these, but I just want you to quickly evaluate these, and then if any are irrational, just leave them as radicals, and I'll show you what to do next. All right, so the first one, square root of 25 is 5, square root of 9 is 3, square root of 100 is 10. If you don't know these, put them in your calculator. Square root of 100 is not 50, it's 10. The next one, square root of 0, instead of guessing, put it in your calculator. 0, just to be sure. Now, when you want to put a fraction in, basically what's happening is you're taking the square root of the top, square root of the bottom, square root of 1 is 1, and the square root of 4 is 2. Now, I did that by hand. If you wanted to put it into the calculator, second x squared, alpha y equals, enter to put your fraction in, and then 1 over 4. The nice part about doing it this way, it's going to simplify it for you. 1/2. Okay, the next one, the square root of 64 over the square root of 9. Square root of 64 is 8. Square root of 9 is 3. All right, now, square root of 90. Second x squared, 90. 9.4. That, if you try to hit math, enter, it's not going to change to a fraction. That's an example of an irrational number. So we're just going to leave it as radical 90, and we'll talk below about how to simplify that. All right, square root of 5 squared is the square root of 25, which is just 5. A squared and a square root cancel each other out. All right, so that was easy. Let's see what happens when they're not perfect squares. All of these, if you put them in your calculator, they're going to be irrational. So the first thing you want to do when you're dealing with these is you want to find the biggest perfect square factor. All right, so that's the biggest perfect square that can be multiplied to get 90. Well, let's make a list of our first 10 perfect squares. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2, 4. 3 times 3, 9. If you want, pause the video, see if you can remember what it is all the way up to 10 times 10. These are your perfect squares. 4 times 4 is 16. 5 times 5 is 25. 6 times 6 is 36. 7 times 7 is 49. 8 times 8 is 64. 9 times 9 is 81. And 10 times 10 is 100. All right, so looking at 90. And again, we just put that in our calculator so I know it's irrational. If you're not sure about a number, put it in your calculator to check first. Because if it's a perfect square, you're going to end up with a nice whole number or a rational number here. If you get a decimal, that's when you want to do this. All right, so which of these goes into 90? 9, right? So I'm going to change the look of this instead of 90, I'm going to write radical 9 times radical 10. They're both still under the radical, just like 90 is. And you want to put your best foot forward, your perfect square, put that first. All right, so what's the square root of 9? 3. And then we'll just leave the radical 10. And if you want to check to see if you did it right, well, we saw what the square root of 90 was. If you type in 3 second radical 10, 9.48, same thing. All right, so if you accidentally wrote 10 radical 3, you'd know to switch it there. All right, what about 50? 25 times 2. All right, again, put the perfect one first. 25 times 2 is still 50. They're both under the radical. And the reason we put the 25 first is because that's going to come out. They were behaving. They're perfect, right? Square root of 25 is 5, radical 2. All right, if there's a number out front, don't worry about it for now. We'll just bring it along. 300. 100. If it's a multiple of 100, it's a good place to start. So I'm going to write that as 100 times 3. All right, I'm going to bring the 2 down. Square root of 100 is 10, so it's 2 times 10, radical 3, because there's no plus or minus or anything like that. So 2 times 10 is 20, radical 3. And again, if you were to put that into your calculator, you would see that you get the same decimal as if you put the original. All right, so that's how you do it by hand. Sometimes it's faster to do it this way. Sometimes it's nice to use the calculator shortcut, which you may or may not remember from last year, but it is very handy. All right, so the calculator shortcut, you're going to go to y equals, and you're going to type in whatever the number is divided by x squared. And what that does is it gives you a list of all the possibilities. You're going to scroll down in the table until you see 1 in the y column, and then go up to your first set of whole numbers above it. And you're going to write it in this form. And you might be saying, what? No idea what she just said. That's okay. Let's look at 800 doing it by hand. All right, you probably think, oh, 100 times 8. We just did one like this. 100 is a perfect square, so it's 10 radical 8, right? The problem is there a perfect square that goes into 8? 4. So I can break it down further. I got extra work going on here. 8 is the same as 4 times 2. Square root of 4 is 2, radical 2, and then we got to deal with that 10 out front, so it ends up being 20 radical 2. That's a lot of work. Well, this is a prime example of where the calculator can help you out. So once again, we're going to go to y equals in your calculator, and you're going to type in 800 divided by x squared. Write that down. 800 divided by x squared. I'm even writing what buttons I'm hitting. Then we're going to go to the table. And remember to get their second table. You should know that, second graph. All right, let's take a look. We know what our answer is going to be, but this is much faster once you get used to it. So I'm going to go to y equals. If there's something there, hit clear. My number is 800, so I'm going to do 800 divided by x squared. So you hit x and then the squared. And what you're telling the calculator is to find all the perfect squares that go into 800. So I'm going to go to my table now. You're not going to be in the negatives. You're going to start at 1. So 1 800. I see 2 200. I see 450. All of those are slowly simplifying it. But you want to scroll down in your table until you see a 1 in the y column. So that way you know you're done. Because look there's another whole number pair, 20 or 22. And then you see a 1. All right, so what you're seeing in your table, it's saying that this is 1 radical 800. That's where you started. 2 radical 200. It's simplified a little bit, but not all the way, until we get down to this one, which is what our answer is. So whatever x is goes in front, whatever the y is goes underneath, and it's simplified for you. You can see this one right here, 10 radical 8. That was in the table also. Go back up. See how you have 10, 8? That was a value there, but it wasn't the one we need because it wasn't simplified all the way. So this table feature really helps. So let's practice with that. Again, you might notice right off the bat and say, oh, 20, that's 4 times 5. I can do that quick. And the square root of 4 is 2 radical 5. Well, why don't we practice with the table? Go to y equals and type in 20 divided by x squared. And I told you, sometimes I like to do the table. Sometimes if it's a small number like that and I know quickly what the perfect square is, I'll do it that way. Okay, 20 divided by x squared. Go to the table, second graph. I'm going to go up to where it starts. So at 1 radical 20, 2 radical 5, and then I see this 1 here. I'm going to just, for note's sake, I'm going to write that down. And then later on in the y column, you see the 1. So 2, 5 is the lowest pair of whole numbers. There is your answer. All right, 128 is a little bit harder. You might not know that one off the top of your head, so I'm going to go to my calculator. 128 divided by x squared. All right, so I see 128, 232, 48. Go all the way down till you see a 1. You might not see as many values as I do, especially if you're using a regular handheld graphing calculator. So 82 is the lowest we're going to see. Again, there were others, but you want to go until you find the lowest pair. So my answer is 8 radical 2. All right, 72, you might notice it's 36 times 2. Or you might not, but that would end up being 6 radical 2. But again, look at your table. We're just going to go to y equals. I'm going to type in 72 divided by x squared. Look at the table. 1 radical 72, 2 radical 18, 3 radical 8, 6 radical 2, and then no other whole numbers. 6 radical 2 is our winner. That's the one that we're going to stick with. You want to make sure to pick the one lowest down there so you can make sure that it's the most simplified. Okay. So again, 6-2 is one of them, but I also see 3-8. Some people will stop at the first one they see. You want to pick the one that's furthest down so you know it's the most simplified. All right, if you have something where there's something in front of the square root, you just bring it down for now. All right, because we need to simplify radical 18 first. So it's just when you put it into the calculator, again, you go y equals 18 divided by x squared. So y equals, I already have a 2-digit number, so I'm just going to change it to 18 divided by x squared. Second graph, so I see 1 radical 18, which is what you're looking at. 2, that's a decimal. 3, 2, and nothing else. So 18 simplifies to 3 radical 2, which makes sense because let's do 18 quick. It's 9 times 2. 3 radical 2. So either way you look at it, you can get that. All right, but now we got to deal with a number that was already out front. So it actually ends up being 9 radical 2. All right, just a couple more here. If you want, we can look at this one by hand. But again, you can type it right into the calculator. 45 is 9 times 5. So again, I'm just bringing that negative 4 down. Square root of 9 is 3. And then radical 5. Multiply those together, negative 12 radical 5. Again, if you did it quickly in the calculator, I still have a 2-digit number. So we're looking at 45. Just what's under the radical. 3, 5 is the lowest one. 3, 5. You're just skipping this step. But you'd still, again, have to multiply by that negative 4. So whatever we get for this one, we're going to multiply it by a half. We already did 800, so why don't we cheat? It's up here. 20 radical 2. So half of 20 radical 2. What's going on here? half of 20 radical 2 is 10 radical 2. And finally, 2/5 times radical 75. Again, you could say, well, I know that's 25 and 3, right? Because quarters. So 2/5 times 5 radical 3 would give us just 2 radical 3. All right, and again, calculator. So let's do 75 quick. Y equals, just changing that 45 to a 75 divided by x squared. I didn't have to change anything else. Second table, 5/3 is what it is. And now I have that 2/5 out front to multiply by. If you're not good with fractions, just type it in. Alpha y equals, for your fraction, 2/5 times 5. Just 2, radical 3, like I have. All right, last question we're going to look at today. The side of a square measures 10 inches. Find the length of the diagonal in simplest radical form. All right, let's draw this square. All sides are the same. So if this is 10, this is 10. If we're looking for a diagonal, it's really just from one vertex to the opposite. And look what we have, a right triangle. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. X, the side we're looking for, your diagonal, is your C, because it's across from the right angle. So it's 10 squared plus 10 squared, because those are your legs, equals x squared. 100 plus 100 is 200. Take the square root. In simplest radical form, you could do it by hand or in the calculator. I know that's 100 times 2, so it's going to be 10 radical 2 inches. Okay, that's it. We'll be working on the practice tomorrow. If you want to get a jump start, you can. Have a great day. If you have questions, stop by the math lab or stop and see me. Have a great day.